Hi guys, so today's video is going to be another funny 1-star reviews, and if you've never seen this series on my channel, it's where I take a popular book or series that is generally agreed upon to be really fantastic, and I find a bunch of people that don't think it's fantastic at all, and I read the really angry, hilarious, funny 1-star reviews to you guys. You don't have to have read the book that I do the funny 1-star reviews for, because I make sure none of the reviews give away any spoilers, and I always give a brief little synopsis of the book so that even if you haven't read it, you can still get a good chuckle out of this. The book that I have picked today is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This book follows a young man named Laszlo Strange who is growing up in this fantastical world that's very different from our own, and he grows up without much of a title. He doesn't have much to his name, but he is a dreamer, and he is determined to learn more about this city that in stories was passed down from one person to the next, and at some point, for some reason, the name of the city disappeared, and in its place, people, whenever they go to say the name of the city, end up always saying weep. People used to believe this city existed, but since this strange mystical thing happened where suddenly the word is just replaced by weep, Laszlo has decided that there must be magic involved, and he really wants to see this city someday. That is the main gist of the book. It is also praised for having a really lyrical writing style, but the people that don't like it, they don't tend to think that it should be praised for that. That said, let's jump into the reviews. First up, it says, "Nope, screw this book. I feel utterly let down by it and all of those who have screamed about how amazing it is. Beautiful prose. If his voice sounds like honeyed calligraphy is what you believe to be beautiful prose, then all of the power to you, because to me it is purple and it is flat, like wading through mud." They go on to say, "The scene swung from starting to draw you in, until her writing style pulled you out of the scene, to make you uncomfortable, to this is too much of a reach, to eye roll." The next one says, "Please note that I DNF'd this book at 5%. Sorry, not sorry. I just am not going to force myself to read something I am not enjoying. The purple prose and info dump that I tried to wade through turned me completely off. I can't say much more than that since I didn't waste my time trying to struggle through this read. I would also say that the flow was just a slog. I did try to skim a couple of chapters and just gave up." The next one says, "The young adult fantasy Strange the Dreamer is one of the most morally repugnant books I've ever read. The novel relies on racism, classism, and ableism as central features of the plot, and these mindsets are held by the so-called heroes. The story is a traditional white savior tale in which the white master race, slave-owning colonialists are recast as blue-skinned demigods with magical powers." So sometimes with these reviews, I only read a snippet, but this one, this is all the person wrote. It says, "No one in this book is having a good time, least of all the reader." This next one says, "People thinking of reading this book should be warned of two things. One, this book is a romantic tragedy. The last 2/3 of the book evoked only one emotion for me: dread. I think the book is grossly mismarketed. The cheerful blue and gold cover with butterflies and the blurb text saying the dream chooses the dreamer, not the other way around, and listing various mysteries made me expect a light-hearted adventure story. Two, there's no resolution at the end. The series as a whole may end up enjoyable, but the end of this book walks off a cliff. If it weren't for those two things, I might be giving this book 5 stars. I acknowledge that Taylor is a master storyteller. I have never felt such prolonged, intense despair in reading a book, but I didn't pick it up for despair. I picked it up because it was marketed as a fun escape read." This next one says, "Every once in a while I will try a book outside of my usual box, as I am still on the hunt for an acceptably readable young adult book, not necessarily of Harry Potter caliber, just, you know, an enjoyable and unique read. A young adult fantasy coming with such high recommendations as this one sounded potentially interesting. Welp, it wasn't. It was, however, written in the most self-enamored, pretentious, and convoluted prose I've read in a long while. A really long while. The thought of having to bear this for more than 50 or so pages I actually read was a tad much. So much too much that this was the first book in 2018 which I returned against a refund. Clearly, one has to still be a teenager to digest that much egotism and melodrama." This next one says, "I give up on this book. It's too confusing and it's not holding my interest anymore, and there's too many big words." This next one, this is a snippet of the review. It says, "I listened to the audiobook and the best thing was the music when the book finally ended." This next one says, "What to say? Another slow, boring book. Pretentious too, with all the trying too hard flowery language. This is good if you have a reading or comprehension disability because everything is repeated 3 to 5 times, so you'll be sure not to miss out on anything. But it's bad if you're a normal person. I also did try to fast forward the audiobooks several times, but just gave up eventually. This next one says, some people will enjoy this novel, and I won't hold it against them if they do. But for me, I have much more meaningful things on my to-read list to spend my time on. This next one says, DNF'd at 70%. I can't torture myself anymore, although I don't mind slow pacing and flowery prose. There is something so boring about this that I just can't read it anymore. This next one says, DNF'd, not my cup of tea, clunky writing, example, where one sentence says exactly the same thing as the previous sentence, but with different words. Not enough for me and the characters or the plot to slog through that writing for the full 500 pages. This is all the review. It says, this is actually a young adult romance. The ending leaves you hanging. Disappointing. Another full review says, maybe it's just me, but I couldn't get through the first chapter. And I usually read books to the end because I feel obligated. Not this one. Once again, all this person wrote is lusty pedophilia that spent a long time talking about nothing. This one's entire review says, DNF'd. I really wanted to read this, but couldn't get into it. Too many big words and too sci-fi for my liking, as I think they meant sci-fi and then forgot the C in the sci. This one says, it was boring, transphobic, kind of sexist, there was an insta-love, and I fell asleep 3 times. This next one says, well, this was better than Daughter Smoke and Bone for a bit, and then it fell into the same problems I had with that. Taylor always has these really rad similes and metaphors, but when there's about a dozen in every chapter, they just start feeling goofy and take me so far out of the story. There was also a lot of great build-up, but I didn't care about anyone in the story, so I didn't care about the story, and so it was just like, 2 stars is too much, but 1 star is too little. But it sucked, so whatever. This person says, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I hated this book. And I don't say that often. I finished it only to add it to my completed books of 2018 list. This is the first book of Laini Taylor's that I have read, so maybe I was simply not used to her writing style, but I found it unbearably cheesy. This one says, just another romance disguised as a fantasy. Started out promising and then devolved into a boring, predictable teen romance. 0 stars. And the last one says, no free returns. This really sucks. The book is in excellent condition. Anyway, that's it for my funny 1-star reviews for Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. If you guys have read Strange the Dreamer, let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know if you hated hearing some of these things because you just think they're untrue, or if you hated hearing them because maybe they're a little true. Also, let me know if you had any favorites from the funny 1-star reviews. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you are interested in seeing more funny 1-star reviews, I'll link the playlist right over here. But happy reading to all of you, and I'll see you later. Bye.